From vanished adventurers to entire groups that seem to evaporate into thin air, these stories continue to baffle and haunt us, and here are 5 such disappearances. On Christmas Eve 1945, the Sauter family gathered in their cozy home in Fayetteville, West Virginia to celebrate the holiday. George and Jenny Sauter were proud parents of 10 children, but that night would change their lives forever. As the clock struck 1 a.m., a fire erupted in their home. In a frantic rush, George, Jenny, and 4 of their children managed to escape, but 5 of the Sauter children, 14-year-old Maurice, 12-year-old Martha, 10-year-old Louis, 8-year-old Jenny, and 5-year-old Betty were still trapped inside. The flames grew rapidly, consuming everything in their path. George tried desperately to save his children. He attempted to reach the attic where they slept, but found the staircase engulfed in flames. The family's cars wouldn't start, leaving them helpless as they watched their home burn for nearly an hour before help arrived. When the fire department finally got there at around 7 a.m., it was too late. The house was reduced to ashes. In the aftermath, no remains of the 5 missing children were found. Furthermore, no one seemed to smell burning flesh during the fire, which would have been a noticeable odor if the 5 children died in the home. Additionally, the Sauters found out that the house fire was not hot enough, nor did it burn long enough to turn a skeleton into ashes. George and Jenny believed their children might have survived and suspected foul play. George had been outspoken against Italian leader Benito Mussolini's regime in Italy. A few months before the fire, George bickered with an insurance salesman regarding the Italian leader. Per the reports, the argument ended with the salesman threatening George by saying that his home is going up in smokes and his children are going to be destroyed. This led the Sauters to theorize that the Sicilian mafia might have kidnapped their children as revenge. As years passed without answers, the Sauters remained determined to find out what happened. They even erected a billboard along Route 16 with pictures of their missing children, offering a reward for any information. Despite numerous sightings reported over the years, none led to closure. Up next, we have the mysterious disappearance of the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers in December 1900. This chilling tale unfolds on Island Moor, one of the remote Flannan Isles off the coast of Scotland. 3 men were tasked with maintaining the lighthouse: James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. They were responsible for keeping the light shining bright for passing ships. On December 15th, a passing steamer noticed something alarming. The lighthouse was dark. This was unusual and concerning. Days later, on December 26th, the relief vessel Hesperus arrived to investigate. As the crew approached the island, they felt an eerie silence. There were no signals or signs of life. Captain Harvey ordered relief keeper Joseph Moore to go ashore. When Moore reached the lighthouse, he found it locked. Inside, everything seemed frozen in time. The clock had stopped, and the kitchen table was set for a meal that would never be eaten. Half-eaten food sat on the table, and 2 oilskin coats were missing, suggesting someone had left in a hurry. The scene was unsettling. The search continued around the island. They discovered signs of a fierce storm. A supply box had been smashed to pieces, iron railings were bent, and turf was ripped from the cliffs. It appeared that something terrible had happened during that stormy night. The lighthouse keeper's logbook revealed strange entries leading up to their disappearance. The last entries described high winds and low spirits among the men. Yet there were no storms reported in the area during that time. This contradiction raised questions about what really happened. Many theories emerged over the years. Some believed the men were swept away by waves while trying to secure equipment. Others speculated about foul play or even a violent confrontation among the keepers themselves. But despite extensive searches and investigations, no trace of Duckett, Marshall, or MacArthur was ever found. On May 14, 2008, a young man named Brandon Swanson vanished into thin air. He was just 19 years old and had been celebrating the end of the school year with friends at a party in Canby, Minnesota. As the night wore on, Brandon decided to drive home, taking a route he was not familiar with. Shortly after midnight, he accidentally drove his car into a ditch. Uninjured but stuck, Brandon called his parents for help. He believed he was near Lind, a small town about 10 miles from home. His parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, jumped into their truck and set out to find him. They stayed on the phone with him, trying to pinpoint his location. Brandon tried to signal them by flashing his headlights, but they couldn't see him in the dark. As they talked, Brandon suddenly exclaimed, "Oh shit," and then the line went dead. His parents frantically called back but received no answer. Panic set in as they realized something was very wrong. At around 6:30 a.m., after searching all night without finding him or his car, they reported Brandon missing to the police. Initially, the police were dismissive. They told the Swansons that it wasn't unusual for young men to stay out all night after a party. However, as they began to investigate further, they discovered Brandon's car about 25 miles away from where he thought he was. It had gotten stuck on a gravel road near Taunton. Search teams scoured the area for days. Bloodhounds picked up Brandon's scent near the Yellow Medicine River, but lost it along the bank. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no trace of Brandon was ever found. Theories about his disappearance range from accidental drowning to foul play. On July 2, 1937, Amelia Earhart set out on a daring adventure. She was determined to become the first woman to fly around the world. Alongside her navigator, Fred Noonan, she took off from Lae, New Guinea, aiming for Howland Island, a tiny speck in the vast Pacific Ocean. This was a crucial stop for refueling. As they flew, trouble began. The weather turned bad and their radio communications became spotty. They struggled to find Howland Island. Just before 9 a.m., they sent a message to Coast Guard ship Itasca, saying they were low on fuel and couldn't see the island. Itasca tried to respond but could not make contact. It was a frustrating situation. Earhart and Noonan continued to search for Howland Island, but time was running out. They were flying blind with little hope of finding their destination. Soon after their last transmission, they vanished from the radar. The Itasca began an immediate search but found nothing. Days turned into weeks as the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy scoured the ocean for any sign of Amelia and Fred. They searched an area roughly the size of Texas but found no clues. The search was one of the most extensive in history, costing millions of dollars. Despite all efforts, no trace of them or their Lockheed Electra plane was ever discovered. In January 1939, Amelia was declared legally dead. Over the years, many theories emerged about her fate. Some believed she crashed into the ocean after running out of fuel. Others speculated she landed on an uninhabited island or was captured by enemy forces. What really happened to her remains is one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The year is 2014, and the world is about to witness one of aviation's greatest mysteries. On March 8th, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, headed for Beijing. The clock strikes 12:41 a.m., and 239 people board the Boeing 777, excited for their journey. Among them are families, business travelers, and tourists, all unaware of the fate that awaits them. 39 minutes into the flight, everything changes. The plane disappears from air traffic control radar as it crosses into Vietnamese airspace. The last communication from the cockpit is a routine, "Good night, Malaysian 370. After that, silence. The plane's transponder shuts down, making it invisible to civilian radar. Confusion begins to set in. As minutes turn into hours, search efforts kick into high gear. The initial focus is on the South China Sea, but as military radar reveals a shocking turn, the search area expands. MH370 is turned back towards Malaysia and has flown for hours over the Andaman Sea. It's a puzzling twist that leaves investigators scratching their heads. By the time the sun rises on March 9th, a massive international search operation is underway. Ships and aircraft from multiple countries scour the ocean for any sign of the missing plane. Days pass with no trace of MH370 or its passengers. The search becomes one of the largest in aviation history, but yields only questions. Satellite data shows that the plane continued to send signals for several hours after its disappearance. It's believed to have flown until it ran out of fuel and crashed somewhere in the remote southern Indian Ocean. But where exactly? Theories about what happened abound. Some suggest mechanical failure or a hijacking, while others point to possible pilot involvement. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah had a flight simulator at home where he practiced routes similar to MH370's final path. Was this just coincidence, or did he have something sinister planned? Despite years of searching and analysis, no definitive answers have emerged. Pieces of debris washed ashore years later offer little comfort to grieving families still seeking closure. That's all for today. Which of these incidents shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below.